All right, welcome to another episode of Closers or Losers. Today we have a guest here, a very special guest. He is a sales keynote speaker. And what this gentleman does is he shows company sales teams how to really turn mundane case studies into compelling case stories. We're going to talk about storytelling so they can win more business, new business. Now, from his award-winning career at Condé Nast, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I am from Arkansas. We don't know how to pronounce words. He shares the lessons that he learned that turn sales teams into revenue rock stars. His TEDx talk, Be the Lifeguard of Your Own Life, go look that up on YouTube, has over 1 million views. Impressive. His new book, The Sales and the Tale, which we're going to talk about, is a business fable set in Austin, Texas, where he lives, and it's about a sales rep whose old ways of selling are not working anymore. I couldn't imagine the reason why. The reader accompanies the rep on his journey and learns how to use storytelling and strengthening their soft skills. We're going to talk about that to improve their professional and personal relationships. He's been interviewed by Larry King and appeared on TV as an expert on how to ask for what you want and actually get a yes. Please welcome to the show, Mr. John Livesay. John, excited to have you on here today. How are you, sir?
Great. Wow, that's quite the nice warm intro. Thank you, Jeremy.
You know, always building you guys up over there, all right? So let's jump in, all right? Yes. Nobody cares about us, John. They just want some goods. They want to sell more, right? They don't care about me and you. They just look at us as the vehicle to get them where they're wanting to go. So let's dive into your story. And I want to give our listeners really a feel for your background and how you've gotten to this point in your life where you're, an elite authority on influence, persuasion, selling, leadership. Maybe tell us a little bit about your background and how this got started. How did you learn all these skills that you have now?
Well, I majored in advertising when I went to school. I thought that was a fascinating topic of business and persuasion and what made certain people change their behavior or remember a brand or be loyal to a brand. And then I decided to get into the tech business, and I was selling multi-million-dollar mainframe computers against IBM in the heart of Silicon Valley.
Okay.
And I realized that I could have a piece of equipment that was faster, less expensive, even more reliable, and they still wouldn't buy because they were afraid of leaving IBM.
Ah, okay. Change, right? Human beings do not like change.
Yes, and the fear, uncertainty, and doubt around all of that. IBM used to say, if you buy another vendor and put it with our equipment and it breaks, we'll point the finger at the other vendor and you'll get fired.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, there's some emotional reasoning going on here. It's not all logic. That was my first aha moment.
Right.
And then I had a career working for an ad agency where we would create commercials for movies coming out on home video back in the day of Blockbuster.
Okay.
And that's where I really honed my storytelling skills, Jeremy, because we could take a movie that maybe hadn't done so well theatrically and reposition it and show different parts of that story to get people to want to go rent or buy it.
Ah, that makes sense. I like that.
And then I had a 15-year sales career at Condé Nast, as you said, which is GQ and Wired and Vanity Fair, 20 different great brands, selling to big companies like Lexus and Guess Jeans to convince them to run their advertising in our brands versus other people. And they used to say, don't come in and talk about numbers. We've already analyzed that. We want you to, give us a reason about why we should be in your magazine or why this audience cares. And so it really was the light bulb moment of, whoever tells the best story is the one that's going to get the sale.
Yeah, whoever builds that gap, right, from where they are compared to where they want to be, whoever builds that gap the biggest, that gets them to view that in their mind,
yes,
that it is far less risky for them to purchase what you're offering and get where they want to be than it is for them to do nothing at all, staying in the status quo and nothing ever changes, right? That's all selling is just change in one word, if that makes sense. Let's talk about this book, though. This is a very intriguing book because you're writing about, the sales representative and you're taking the reader on this journey, which I find quite fascinating, actually. Why did you write the book and who did you really write it for?
Well, I wrote it for people who are in sales, and in my opinion, even if that's not your title, you have to sell yourself to get hired, promoted, all kinds of stuff. But it really is targeted to people in the sales business. The story happens to be set in a healthcare medical situation, since there's so many people in that field that have similar struggles,
Yeah.
which is not drowning in a sea of sameness,
Yeah.
not being seen as a commodity. And it's a story about storytelling. So the goal, as you had mentioned, is to get people to see themselves in the story and then learn about storytelling at the same time. And there's some methodologies and things that people can use at the end. But I thought it would be an entertaining way to pull people in. And it's been a lot of fun to see people go, oh gosh, I can relate to the lead character in your story. Or I even had someone say to me when I was giving a talk at Berkshire Hathaway sales team, my son sounds like your character. He happened to have a son who was 30. So that's the joy of telling a story or writing a book or giving a talk, is that people see themselves in it and then start to remember some of the outcomes that character had.
What did you mean by when you say that the representative, you go on this journey with them and they're finding out that their old selling skills just aren't working? Break that down for everybody listening.
So the old way of selling is to push out a bunch of facts and figures and numbers. And it comes from the belief that if you know, like, and trust me, then you'll buy from me. So with that first thought is, no, you need information. And let me just tell you more details and send out more. And the problem with that is people buy emotionally, as we referenced earlier. So if you're pushing out facts and the other person's telling a story that you see yourself in, the story's going to win every time. And that's where that rep realizes my old way of just showing data is not working and I don't know what to do.
Because everybody can show data, right? It's not like all the data does is it just commoditizes you in your prospect's mind. And that's when you have to compete on price, and because that's how they view you. You got them into thinking price-based thinking or cost-based thinking rather than getting them to think results-based thinking, which is completely different, as you know. I want to stay on this subject though. So you said some interesting things as far as like, old way of selling, like old way of doing things. In your mind, how can people, let's talk about somebody listening right now that's just getting into sales. Okay. How can people start to really build their sales skills if they're brand new and know that what they're learning is actually going to work compared to like learning the wrong skills? Because you can definitely learn the wrong skills from sales trainers out there. I can tell you that for sure. How can they make sure that that doesn't happen?
Well, the best way is to first realize that a storytelling skill is your soft skills: listening, empathy, storytelling. And you don't have to be this gifted athlete or this gifted singer to learn how to be a better storyteller. There's some structure to it. And once you start practicing and following a checklist of how to tell a good story, you're going to start tugging at heartstrings, and that's what gets people to open purse strings. Yeah.
Let's talk about the structure. What is the structure? Because I think when some people, like, let's say that I have never looked at any of your stuff and I'm like, okay, he's talking about storytelling. What does that mean? Me just talking about some story, right? There has to be some type of structure that psychologically takes the buyer on a journey that ends up where you want them to be and ultimately where they want to be. Give us a little bit overview of what that structure looks like.
Sure. Well, there's a quick little checklist. Your story should be clear, concise, and compelling.
Okay. Let's talk about clear first.
Because if it's not clear, we know the confused mind says no, and they don't tell you they're confused. And don't use a bunch of acronyms or try to impress people with how smart you are. So the clearer you are of what that story's about and how it helps, then people are like, okay. Then it has to be concise. And here's the secret. There's the meeting after the meeting. They hear you pitch, they hear your competitors pitch, then they have a meeting after that and say, okay, well, what did you think? They all sound the same. I guess we should go with the cheapest. Or
commoditized.
You said a story that they remember and can repeat if it's concise. And
how do you get your stories concise though, rather than just rambling? Maybe walk people through that, because I know that's a problem a lot of salespeople have.
It's literally timing it, practicing it to other people, and making sure, was that clear, was it concise? And then the third part, is it compelling? Is there some emotion in there? Because we have to care about the characters in the story, and the stakes have to be somewhat high for us to even be interested. So the four parts of a story, I'm going to give you a story, and then we'll break it down. I think that's an easier way to learn.
Let's do it that way. I like that.
So the old way, when I was working with a healthcare tech company, I said, what are you saying now? Well, this equipment makes the surgeries go 30% faster. Do you want one? It's so logical. Why aren't you buying this?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, there's no story there, and it's numbers.
Yeah.
So now they say, imagine how happy Dr. Higgins was 6 months ago down at Long Beach Memorial using this equipment. He could go out to the patient's family in the waiting room an hour earlier than expected.
Yeah.
And if you've ever waited for someone you love to come out of surgery, every minute feels like an hour.
Yeah.
The doctor comes out, puts them out of their waiting misery and says, good news, the scope shows they don't have cancer, they're going to be fine. Turns to the rep and says, that's why I became a doctor, for moments like this. Now that's a case story using the 4 parts. That rep tells that case story to another doctor at another hospital who sees themselves in it, and 9 times out of 10 says, you know what? That's why I became a doctor. I want your equipment too.
So they can visualize that in their mind, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So when you tell the story, they're visually seeing themselves as the doctor walking out in the patient room, patient's happy, makes them feel good. So they're visually seeing it, not just hearing facts and figures that everybody says, and then they just commoditize you. I like that. That makes sense.
Thanks, Jeremy. Well, you nailed it. The doctor's the hero of the story, not the rep, not the equipment.
Yeah.
Our job is to be the Sherpas or getting somebody up Mount Everest. So the first part of the story is the exposition.
Yeah.
Who, what, where, when. We know the doctor's name. We know how long ago it was. We know where it was. You got to paint the picture to get people in the story.
Yeah.
Then the second part is the problem.
Okay.
The better you describe a problem, the better people think you have their solution. The client said when they heard that story, gosh, it gives us chills.
Yeah.
Not only are we not telling stories, it never occurred to us to make a patient's family a character in the story.
Yeah.
And you see how I pulled you in by saying if you've ever waited for someone you love.
Right.
And even if you haven't, you could probably imagine, or someone who did.
Yeah.
And then the solution is the doctor comes out an hour early, puts them out of their waiting misery. But then the resolution, that's the 4th step. What is life like after? Is the doctor saying, this is why I became a doctor, for these moments. Yeah. So without a resolution, a story is not strong. It's okay, but it's not great.
Okay.
So exposition, problem, solution, resolution.
I like that. You said something a second ago that kind of brought me back, and I think it's an interesting subject that I think every sales professional, every business owner needs to understand. There's this age-old adage that, people buy from people who they know, like, and trust. Okay. Yeah. And it comes from Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which was a really good book at its time, but the issue is written in 1936, and it's 2022, right? Yeah. Buying behaviors have drastically changed because, as you know, the power of the internet, especially social media. And I think it's really hard for salespeople because they have been so indoctrinated. Like, you got to get them to trust you. That is true. They have to trust you to buy from you. Okay. But how do you get somebody to trust you? You can't go into a conversation like, how's your day going today? Like, how are you doing today, sir? Like, everybody knows you're not genuinely interested in how their day is going. They hear that from every single salesperson that's ever tried to sell them something. Right. So when you ask the same type of generic, almost, I would say, inauthentic questions, even if you're authentic and you really want to believe, you really want to know how their day's going, they don't feel you are, because they're used to every salesperson doing that. So we don't build trust by asking them how the weather is or who won the game last night, or you notice a picture in their office and say, oh yeah, my daughter just got married too. Let me tell you about that. Trust is only built by the amount of skilled questions you know how to ask that trigger the prospect to view you as an expert in what you're talking about. Okay. That's how trust is built. Now, people will buy from somebody who they feel can get them the best result over somebody that they just like. Right? Like, if they like you, that's just a bonus. But in our day and age, people buy from the person or company who they feel can get them the best result, period. Right? You love Aunt Betty, but you're not necessarily buying from Aunt Betty if she's got a competitor who has a better product that you feel is going to get you a better result. Right? If that was the case, I mean, you look at like Amazon. Why do so many people buy from Amazon over like the local retail store? Now they might know their friend that runs that retail store and they like them, but Amazon gets them a better result. It's not like they like Amazon or know the Jeffrey Bezos who runs Amazon, right? But they're buying because they get a better result. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think it is a visual that we can all hold on to, which is, it does start with trust, which is a gut thing. In fact, the handshake came about to show we don't have a weapon in our hand. That's why warm introductions, social proof, all of those things, even being well lit when on a video call so people can see your eyes, reduces that fight or flight response.
Yeah.
And then from the gut, it goes to the heart.
Yeah.
And this is where the likability factor comes in when you describe their problem. That's I like you if you can describe my problem in a way that makes me think you get me.
Yeah.
And then it goes to the head, and still not the time to push out data.
Yeah.
I have seen time and again, there's an unspoken question everybody has when they hear you pitch anything, which is, will this work for me? I might even trust and like you, but if I don't think what you're offering will work for me, I'm still not going to buy it. And that's where storytelling really comes in.
100%.
Because you can see yourself in the story, and then you go, oh, well, then it will work for me if I can see myself.
Yeah, 100% of the time. Now, look, it doesn't mean that you obviously want to get people to like you, but that is not the reason why somebody buys from you just because they think you're cool, right? I might think somebody's really cool, but I'm going to buy from somebody else if I feel like they can get me a better result, right? Now, if they like you, it's just a bonus. Still good to get them to like you, but you don't just get a person to like you by just talking about the weather and cheesy subject lines.
No, it's showing empathy builds your likability.
Yeah, likability, like I said, likability is brought on by empathy and them feeling you understand their situation over other competitors who they don't feel like understands their situation, who are just, they feel like it are just there to sell them something. Completely night and day difference. What is it? I want to ask you this question. What is it that keeps most salespeople from being great in your mind?
I would say the number one thing that keeps salespeople from being great is the lack of preparation.
Let's talk about. Walk us through what that means. Yeah.
Oh, I have seen it time and again. No matter where they are in their career.
Yeah.
Either someone just starting out goes, "I got this. I don't need to practice or role play or, even do any homework before I go talk to somebody."
Yeah.
And then the people who are a little more successful get a little arrogant about it. Like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I don't need to think about this. Everyone's the same. I don't need to customize what I'm saying. I tell the same pitch over and over again. And eventually that doesn't work, especially if you're competing against somebody who does do the preparation and customizes a story and personalizes something that, especially if it's cutting edge, it just, I just saw in yesterday's, headline, XYZ happened to your company or your competitor.
Yeah.
Those are the people that really stand out. And so I think that's the number one thing I see people is the lack of willingness to prepare. And
I agree with you. I mean, it's really interesting to see, like, if you're in sales, like this is your career, your livelihood is dependent on your preparation. That would be like George Clooney, going into like audition for a movie and he's not even prepared, hasn't read his lines and is reading them off a script. Like he wouldn't be George Clooney. Like nobody would know who he was if he was not prepared, right? So you have to look at like becoming like a famous actress or actor, like they rehearse over and over and over and over before they even audition. That's why they get any part they want. That's why they get paid millions of dollars. Top 1% salespeople who make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year or more, the reason why they're there is because they're the most prepared. They're legitimately the most diligent in preparation. They know exactly what questions to ask. They know why they're asking the question. They know what they're looking for, okay? They know any type of objection that comes their way. They know how to respond to that and be able to help the prospect overcome that concern in their mind. Salespeople who are not in that category, that's why you're making what you're at. And I even say, I always have this quote, low six-figure salespeople have high egos, right? So they're barely making six figures. They think they know everything about selling because maybe they're the top of their field in their office. But that's why they stay where they're at, because they think they know everything and they're not willing to learn more advanced skills, because what's gotten you here is never going to get you here, right? You have to up your game and your skill level if you want to make double that or triple that or quadruple that, whatever you're in. Let's talk about sales leadership though, like sales managers, VPs, chief sales officers. What do you feel like keeps most sales leaders from being great?
The number one thing I think that causes sales leaders to not really be successful is they think that the skills they used to become a great salesperson will that's the same skills they need to be a leader, that they don't have to
Yeah.
learn anything new about. And everyone has their own way of doing it, not just your way. It's so that the big mistake is, well, it's my way or the highway. Everyone has to say it exactly the way I say it and do it the way I do it. And they start micromanaging people and not trusting them or caring about them. And then it's just a house of cards.
Yeah.
But the leaders that say, this isn't about me, and this is about me making you a better person, not just a better salesperson.
Yeah.
Then those are the people that I've worked for, and I'm sure you've had bosses that you're like, I would do anything to make them happy.
Sure.
They care about me, and I want to make them happy, and you go above and beyond just however many calls you have to make that day or week.
Yeah, it's collaboration. And let's stay on the subject of sales leaders. How can they create greater respect and trust in their sales organization's culture, in your mind?
Well, storytelling has been a great tool for a lot of sales leaders. One of the things I do with clients is I help them craft their own story of origin. How did you get into healthcare or architecture or whatever it is they're doing? And I've seen some sales management people not only put the case stories that the reps have, but each rep's individual story of origin. My mom was a nurse. I was a microbiologist. I didn't want to spend my life behind a microscope. Little stories of origin like that with the case stories make the people feel seen and heard and appreciated.
Yeah.
And they also use it as a tool to onboard new salespeople because, as you know, that first 90 days is crucial for people to feel like, is this my tribe? Do I feel connected to these people? And by having, what's your story of origin? How'd you get into this business? And then reading other people's stories of origin, it helps break the ice and keeps the team feeling like they're more than just a number.
Okay. I like that. That's really good. Let's dive into some tactical stuff. Like, what's one of the most important questions that every salesperson should be asking their prospect?
Well, one of the important questions I like to ask is when I get an objection or a flat out no.
Okay.
Which is changing the script a little bit and saying, what if?
Yeah.
And then
let's talk about that. Like, what's an objection that you would have got? Yeah, go ahead.
So I was selling advertising. I was at a fashion magazine at Condé Nast. I was calling on Speedo. Yeah. They had a line of sportswear coming out, and I said, "Oh, would you consider running this sportswear in my fashion magazine?" And they said, "No, we're going to run it in a fitness magazine."
Yeah.
And then I said, "Well, what if we treated the sportswear like it was high fashion, and we could have a fashion show with sportswear models around a hotel swimming pool, and Michael Phelps is on your payroll during the Olympics, but if he showed up, we get all kinds of publicity." And they went, oh, they got intrigued.
Yeah, you generated curiosity and thought, right? The what if question, what that does psychologically is it gets them curious enough to want to engage, right? And actually become open to what you're talking about. That's brilliant. What happened with that?
Oh, well, I got the advertising. And more importantly for me as a former lifeguard, I got to meet Michael Phelps.
Okay. Yeah, he lives here in Scottsdale. I see him. Our corporate offices are here in a place called Scottsdale Quarter. And I see the guy walk around with his wife and kid like all the time and stuff. Look, a big dude, you know, I guess
Very tall.
He's that big. All right. So you got the deal then.
Yes, I got the deal, and he was at the fashion show, and I got my picture taken with him, and I said, you know, Michael, everyone says you're so successful because your feet are like fins and your lung capacity is bigger than the average person. I'm guessing there's something else. He goes, oh, yes, John. When I was younger, my coach said to me, Michael, are you willing to work out on Sundays? Yes, coach. Great, we just got 52 more workouts than the competition.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, there's the answer. What am I willing to do that other people aren't willing to do to get to the Olympic level like Michael did? And everyone just assumes, oh, it's easy for you.
Just born that way.
You have a good territory. You have a good product. And it's like, no, that person's doing something that you aren't willing to do.
Yeah. Well, I see it all the time in salespeople. It's not like you're born out of your mother's womb with like advanced questioning and advanced tonality and delivery skills. Like those are actually acquired skills. So as sales professionals, you can tell who's going to be great, who's going to be good, who's going to be average, who's going to really suck actually by the amount of work, preparation they do and what they're putting in their mind. Are they driving to work each day and in appointments, listening to, CNN or Fox News, or, talking about politics all day? Are they driving to work, listening to Britney Spears, whoever the latest, greatest rap star is? Like, how many of those things make you any money as a sales professional? Right. Zero, right? Are you driving to work? Like, use your car as a university on wheels. Like, if you can do that 30 minutes to an hour a day over and over and over, you're just going to outpace everybody else, just like Michael Phelps, because you're feeding your mind with knowledge. It's going to help you sell more, sell efficiently, learn more, become better at, if you're a sales manager, what are you putting in your mind to lead your teams every day? You know, hey, I love talk show radio. It's great, but like, what is it doing for you? Probably zero things. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think that's why podcasts are so successful. Is people have realized, oh, this is, as you said, my university on wheels. I can work out and learn something. I can be driving in the car and I don't get so stressed out, or I'm on an airplane. There's 100 ways to feed your mind. You know, Arthur Ashe, the famous tennis pro, said the key to success is confidence. The key to confidence is preparation. So again, it's just constantly fueling yourself with, I learned one little thing today that I can start to make myself 1% better. Then over time, those small little incremental steps will make me overall better.
Well, it's true. I mean, people ask me, like, Jeremy, how did you become so great at sales? How did you make millions of dollars a year in your sales jobs? Well, look behind me. I read 5 books a month times 12 months for 22 years. Right. Of course, I would have to be somewhat good by that point compared to the average salesperson that might have read 1 book a year. I was reading 60 to 1. Who obviously is going to be better at sales. At that point, it's like, it's not rocket science, right? It's like Michael Phelps saying, well, I worked out once a week. You know, like, I'm sure that's maybe what people did who never went from high school to college, and then maybe the college person to the Olympics, maybe they worked out 3 times work, but Michael's working out 7. Like, I mean, it's not rocket science here, you know?
A great quote, readers are leaders. And I can't remember who said it at the moment, but clearly you're, you know, supporting that.
Well, and you have to implement it, right? So you got to read, you got to acquire the knowledge, and then actually do something with it, right? Because I know a lot of people that go to like a bunch of seminars that never do anything. They're like seminar junkies, right? How do you fine tune your craft once you get good? Like, let's say you get up to this level, you're making like 6 figures a year. How do you then fine tune your craft to become great?
Well, I've done this with myself as a sales keynote speaker. I'm constantly watching myself after it gets recorded, much like an athlete watches their film. I ask for feedback. I have a coach still, and I get feedback from the audience. Tell me one thing you remember from the talk, and then I'm like, okay, these 6 things are really landing. And I introduce something new. Oh, that's landing. But you know what? No one's really remembering this part of the talk, so maybe that gets cut and replaced with something new to see if it takes off. So the new thing that's in the sale is in the tail that people are loving in the talk as well, which is how to be more resilient with the 5-5-5. And it's, you know, we all get knocked down. We have somebody cuts us off in traffic, we get a no, we get disappointed, we get rejected, whatever. My whole thing now is just zoom out like you're the movie director of your own life and say, will this matter in 5 minutes? Somebody cut me off in traffic. Probably not. How about, yes, I'm still mad about this or that. How about 5 hours from now? Oh, yeah, I'm still going to think about that. All right, 5 days from now? And then you're like, oh, that should be in my rearview mirror, that no, that rejection. And so having that, it's easy to remember, it's easy to use, boom, people are like, you know what, I just 5-5-5 something. And then I know, oh, it's sticking and they're using it, that's off and running.
I love that. Any final, we're going to ask where people can go to learn about you and your book and that stuff in just a second, but any final thoughts or advice for our listeners?
I would just say that when you have a story ready to go and you need to think of your brain like a jukebox or a playlist, more than one story, so that depending on who you're talking to, you have the right story at the right time, you're going to get the yes more times than not.
I like that. It's all about preparation, right? It all comes back to how prepared you are with your stories, with your questions, with where you're wanting to go with the conversation. All right. Where can our listeners learn more about you, your training, your books? Where can they go?
Well, the easiest place is my website, which is just my name, johnlivesay.com. I also have a free gift for anybody who wants the chapter sent to them free. You just text the word pitch, PITCH, to 66866 and I'll send you the first chapter free, and that should intrigue you to want to know what happens next.
Let's go over that again. So text the word pitch to what number again?
66866.
66866. Text the gentleman the word pitch. Get a chapter of his book. Check it out. Go buy the book. It's only going to help you sell more. I'm assuming the book is not $100,000. So go make an investment of 20 or 30 bucks or whatever it is. Start learning that and then look at what he's got to offer. Appreciate you being on, John.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy.
That was a great conversation. Sometimes you bring people on here and I bring him in and I'm like, you know what? I'm not sure that person really helped the audience today, but you, sir, that was good. You definitely helped everybody on here today for sure.
I'm glad. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed these, here's another you can watch right over here. Join our free Sales Revolution group. Click the link below, join us, and we're gonna help you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you real soon.